Hey, Rafael. When you look around the NBA landscape, there are a lot of teams that have found success playing different styles. 5 out, 1 in, 5 out, 4 out, 1 in, spread pick and roll, motion offense. Is there a specific style that you think works best for your core group of young guys, and how will that potentially impact your decisions as to the next head coach of this team?
That's actually a super interesting question. I think the answer is no. In other words, I think we have a very flexible group of guys who can do a lot of things well. So I think I haven't really thought about it in that way. We spent a lot of time thinking about where the NBA is going, trying to predict, trying to make sure that you don't plan for X, and it turns out X is gone by the wayside, and the only thing that's effective is Y. So it's not to say we don't think about it in that respect, but as it applies directly to this group, I guess I haven't thought about it as much. I do think we have a flexible group, and part of it is because they're so young, they're not fully developed, and so the path along which they develop, I think, will for sure be hugely influenced by the coaching they receive, but also by what is effective in the NBA. Hopefully, if they end up being as good as we hope they end up being. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do think that I don't think we're at all locked into a specific style. So
More generally, then, what are the qualities or attributes you're looking for in terms of individual style, experience? What do you want to find in the next coach?
for the next coach, I think we want somebody who has a real vision for how to implement our young guys, how to incorporate some veterans, which we're for sure gonna be adding to the mix over this summer, but also over the next few years. And I think we're looking for somebody who has kind of a dynamic presence and vision, and they'll obviously have a new voice, and we want that voice to be one that we think is going to really resonate with our group. It's not formulaic. It's not like, oh, we need to get this exact thing. It's much more trying to figure it out. I do think there's really talented people who are available right now, and so it'll be really interesting to hear what they have to say, when they come in, because we're just starting this process.
Why did you feel Stephen wasn't the right coach for you moving forward?
I think I was deciding whether or not I was going to change your question into the answer I want. I will answer your question, at least in part, which is I think we thought it was time for a new voice, and it is absolutely nothing to do with Stephen, actually. Like, it's much more about, okay, we're kind of exiting one stage, entering another. What's the optimal way to go forward, and trying to optimize for that. Kind of going back and not answering your question, but using it as an opening to say something I want to say. Working with Stephen has been amazing, and he is as good a person as you could ever hope to work with. And I hope that the effect he's had on me as a coworker is one I have on other people. And I doubt I actually get there, but that's like a goal of mine. He's a really good person. We've been really lucky to have him for the last 3 years.
Rafael, what about your staff? What have you decided about Stephen's staff?
Oh, Stephen's staff. I was
Sorry,
like,
Stephen,
yeah.
your coaching staff.
Yeah, so I think with respect to that, we need to find a new head coach, and then they'll make a decision on who their staff is. I think we had a good staff, and I would encourage people, whoever the coach is, I would encourage them to take a look at these guys. But that ultimately is not that's not going to be my decision. I think it's important that a coach be able to choose their own staff.
So they're not released to go anywhere else right now.
So if they find it, we would. I mean, we're not holding people hostage.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to go find it, we've had really good discussions. What I would say is that people, if they have an opportunity, we're for sure going to allow them to pursue it. But it's not foreclosed that some of them or all of them could come back next year.
Thank you.
Rafael, do you have a timetable on hiring for the next head coach?
No, I mean, we're not going to pin ourselves in, but I do think, we don't see any, there's no value in waiting. So we're going to start the process right away, and I think we're excited about it, the opportunity to get to talk to some people, and if and when we find the guy, we'll move quickly on that person.
The record, obviously, for 3 straight years hasn't been where this organization needs it to be. Does the coach make that much of a difference, or is part of this hiring the right coach, the new voice you want, but also these players have to continue to develop and kind of get to that next level?
Yeah. I mean, I think we knew going into, well, we didn't know when starting 2 years ago, starting before whatever it was, the 22 season, I think. Is that right? Anyway, starting 2 years ago, we knew that it was going to be challenging because we knew we were going to be very young, and young teams have historically had a very hard time in the NBA. We had enormous salary cap constraints. We had a lot of salary. We didn't have free agent room, and we had a lot of young players. We drafted 4 first-round picks 2 years ago. A year ago, we brought in another 3. That's on top of multiple other young guys that we had on our roster. The NBA punishes young players. We all know that. This summer has always been important to us, not only as well, for a lot of reasons. We're obviously going to have another couple picks, but we're also going to have the ability for the first time to really bring in veteran players and see if we can mesh the thing together. And so that's what we're going to do, and the goal is to continue the growth, kind of exponentially. But to your point, that won't happen just by bringing in player X and Y to the team, no matter how good they are. We are banking on there being material internal growth, but I think you've also seen that. I think our fans feel pretty good that growth is going to come. I know I do, because if you just look at the difference of from Jalen and Alperen of their rookie year to their second year, it is a material difference. That doesn't stop, right? They should really be improving to this year and next year. Jabari and Tari need to really improve from this year to next year. And then we also need to bring in people around them, And so, I could go down the list. KJ's in his 3rd year, and you can see his improvement from rookie year to second year to third year. With guys this age, it doesn't stop just because it's you're not a rookie, right? You need to keep improving all the way through your 20s, really. And our guys work really hard. I am confident they're going to put in the work, and because I'm confident they're going to put in the work, I'm confident they will improve. And then it's on us to make sure that the infrastructure around them helps the whole thing pop up, that we do bring in some veteran players that really, really help them and really, really help the organization win. And that kind of the new voice we brings in, he adds a new element, and hopefully we build to the whole.
When you take inventory from the rookies, you mentioned Tari and Jabari. TyTy obviously crushed it in the G League. What did you like about their development this year?
Yeah, just that they all really improved. They're an eclectic group of guys. They're good guys. They're fun. I really enjoy. Honestly, I really enjoyed Jabari's year. Because it's visceral sitting down to dinner with him before the season started and thinking to myself, man, is he not ready for this? And but in a good way, not in a it's gonna kill him, but just he thinks because he grew up in the NBA and he thought he was ready a little bit, and I'm thinking in my head, yeah, no. And then he went through it, and then watching the second half of the year, him really come on. And to me, the impressive thing with him is just owning it the whole way. It was never you need to do this more for me, this guy needs to do that. It was always I need to do better. And because of that, he did do better, right? And he's just so different. And Tari's like they have nothing in common with Jabari as a person. Tari just came in I'm gonna fight, right? I'm gonna fight every possession, and he did, and he's got his own challenges, but you could, that fight that we saw at LSU that really we wanted, that translated immediately. And as he learns how to channel it, I'm really excited to see where he goes. And yeah, I thought I thought we did him a disservice. We probably should have let him just hang in the G League for a little bit so he could really get comfortable, and he finally did. And he really led that team, and they did really, really well They had a great playoff run, and he was hugely responsible for that. So yeah, like I think they all had good years, you know, and that's what it's all about. Like it's not easy to control you can't control how good you are today. You are however good you are, but you really have a lot of control over how much you improve. And I think, you know, I think all three of those guys really, you know, they took that challenge on.
You mentioned incoming rookies, also looking to add veterans. To what degree do you think where you land in the lottery will impact your free agency plans?
You know, maybe a little. You know, I don't. The real answer is I don't know. But you know, I think that we do plan to bring in veterans no matter what. It's not like if we get the 75th pick, then we're out on free agents. You know, like I think we believe that it makes sense to add guys, and we have the capacity to add guys in a way that's organic. And so I think we're going to be looking to do that no matter what. That does require that the right people be available on the right deal and everything else. We're cognizant that not every deal is a good deal. So we're not just going to go willy-nilly sign guys. But I think if we find guys that we think fit where we want to go, we'll be aggressive kind of no matter what happens in the draft. And I do think we're uniquely positioned. Like, you know, we don't necessarily have to draft at least both of the picks, you know, we don't. And we have, like, a lot of teams in our situation are trying to find young talent still. I actually feel really good about the young talent we have on the roster. And so, depending upon who's available in the draft and everything else, trading those picks, trading into the future for future picks, trading those guys for veteran guys, that's all very much on the table for us.
Would you consider trading a pick that was even top 3 in that range, or are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I would consider trading anything. Like, that's my job. Like, the most fundamental part of my job is to try and trade stuff for better stuff, right? So we would consider anything if it makes sense for where we're trying to go ultimately. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Stone, you talk a lot about roster construction, but do you believe that the roster that you put in place for Stephen Silas was enough for him to have a chance to succeed? And along those same lines, what do you feel you can do better for the next coach and hope for him to get a better opportunity?
I don't know, is the answer to the question. Like, what I would say is that, and Steve and I actually talked about this, like, I know you guys all know him. He's a good guy. He's such a smart guy. I will speak for myself. It isn't fair that I have this job. There are millions of people who want my job. I have it. I got lucky. I got it. The circumstances under which I received it, there's some really good circumstances. There's some challenging circumstances. That's just reality. And that's the reality of our profession. Anybody who's involved in the NBA, whether as a coach, as a front office person, as a player, we're all really lucky and blessed. I'm speaking for me here, right? And so this notion of what's fair or not, life isn't fair, right? And so I would never complain to anybody that, oh, well, if only I had player X, or if only player X had been in this draft or whatever. That's just not the way it works, right? Stephen did a great job representing us and representing himself and teaching our young guys. He is proud of himself, and he absolutely should be. You know, that's kind of what I got for you. In terms of the next coach, they're much more than Stephen did. They're going to know exactly what they're walking into. You know, we'll have free agency and everything to go in with them, and we'll have some draft picks and everything else. But we have a young core of guys that I think are very, very likely to be with us for the next year or two. And we're going to get to wherever we get to, and that coach will have an enormous impact on it. I think this is a very attractive situation. Based on my phone ringing today, a lot of other people think it is too. And you know, and again, we'll get to where we get to. I think, but I do think, like, in the scheme of things, and again, I want to apply this to me, not anybody else. Like, we're all super lucky to be in the situation we're in, and it is for sure the case that some people happen into get their opportunity in better situations than others and worse ones. But largely that's out of my control, it's out of his control, it's out of all of our control. And so to me, it's just, enjoy the opportunity and do the best you can within it.
Without referring to any player specifically, have you thought about what next season might be if your team did win the draft lottery?
Yeah.
Could you expand on that?
I don't think so. I think ultimately we'll incorporate whatever player we draft or we trade for. We'll incorporate them the best we can. And obviously, yeah. I mean, I don't want to lie to you. Yeah. I've thought a lot about it, but I think again, like right now the kind of immediate focus is starting this coaching search and seeing who got there, and how any player gets used, whether it's one we draft or one on the current roster. That's kind of part of the exciting part is how does this coach think they can optimize their skills? There obviously are things that our guys can do that everybody knows about, and how do we enhance those? Or are there things that we think are hidden that they can really do really well that we can bring out at them? And those are that's how we create a competitive advantage. That's how we become better than we are today. So that's kind of my focus.
Michael, you mentioned earlier that it was time for a new voice for this next phase. Can you talk more about what this next phase is? And I remember before the season last year, neither you nor Tiller really wanted to quantify what success looked like. Are you going to be able to better do that for the next coach in terms of what you expect to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quantifying is it's a very double-edged sword. So I'm not going to do that today. I do think that. Like I said earlier, we're entering into a phase where we can actually participate in free agency, where we have salary cap flexibility, where we have young players who've become accustomed to this league. The rookies have played a year, the second-year guys have played 2 years. It's a different stage, and we're going to have to integrate the whole. There's going to be unique challenges to it that didn't exist in the past. But I do think, it's we don't control our draft pick next year unless it's top 4 protected. But that kind of by definition means you don't control it. So the goal is very much to field a materially more competitive team, one that is growing in a way that we think is going to lead us to where we want to go, which is ultimately a championship. And so I think, we do expect to take them a very material step forward, understanding we're still growing. Like, until you're there, you're not there. But we want to do that, again, through internal growth, but also by bringing in people externally that really complement our internal guys.
Kind of a two-part question. To what degree is it a priority or not to have a coach with previous head coaching experience? And with that in mind, in the past 3 searches, you guys put out a really wide net, talked to a ton of guys, a lot of assistant coaches who are up and coming, but maybe not going to be head coaches. This year, do you view the search as almost a competition with other teams to get a guy you might target? Or do you again put out the wide net and see what you think about a large number of candidates?
One of the reasons I think that they're really good candidates is because there are people I'm aware of who have been very successful in the NBA as head coaches, and they're available, right? Or at least they're not under contract with another team right now. So that's obviously interesting, and by definition, those people have prior head coaching experience, because until you do, how do you know that they don't, right? But I think there's validity and importance in putting out a wider net so that you get to know people, so that you don't rule anyone out just because they don't. So I do think we will interview people who have not had head coaching experience prior. I think you should, because again, you don't know what you don't know. Kind of one of the premise of my I guess it's mine of my tenure here is we're not going to be outworked, right? And so I'm not going to just not interview people or not talk to them because they don't fit X and Y, but they might be amazing, right? We'll try very hard to make sure that we talk to as many interesting people as we can, and then And that's the goal. But there are really interesting people out there that have been very successful, and we'll talk to them too.
Just a thought that leaves out the compete to get the guy part of it. If
I
you're
mean,
in that
until you
situation-
decide he's your guy, why would you compete? So like, I don't know. And I don't know whoever else is going. Like, I just don't know. I would say we're not afraid to compete. Like, but it's not a situation where we're aimed at one guy and we're in a bidding war or something. And this isn't new news. Like, this is. But I do think that there are really qualified candidates out there that we're really looking forward to talking to.
Some owners around the league are a little bit more impatient than others. Tillman hasn't been that. What does it mean for you to have the support from ownership to continue to lead this franchise in the next direction?
No, Tillman and the Fertitta family they've been amazing. They've been so supportive, and Tillman is very anxious to win, and it is very painful for all of us going through this process. I don't want to hide that, but that actually highlights even more how awesome it's been to have his support, and to have somebody who feels the pain on a kind of a daily basis, and still understands the importance of taking all the steps to do it the right way, and no, he's been everything I possibly could hope for in an owner, like legitimately.
Over the last few months, kind of the culture of the organization has come under fire, whether it's former players or media. How do you respond to some of that? And can you change the perception? Is it only just winning? Is that how you change the perception?
Trying to think of a PG way of saying this. Some of the stuff out, like first of all, there have been a couple of things. It hasn't been a lot. Secondly, a couple of the people are just out of their mind. And so what I would say on players is players are entitled to their thoughts, and it's fine. And we've had a ton of people come through here over the last 3 years, and the vast majority of them have had amazing experiences. And I think if you're around, you talk to the guys in this locker room, we have a really good culture. We have not managed to turn that culture into wins at this point in time. But culture, I would put our team up there with anybody in the NBA. We work really hard. People are very supportive of each other. They get along very well. They spend a ton of time together off the court. A lot of that's the function of their youth, which is also one of the reasons why we've struggled to win. Like, it's all interrelated. But I am willing to fight with anyone who will say that our culture on this team this year, it was challenged. It's been, if not the best team I've ever been around, certainly one of the top 2 or 3, and I've been in the NBA since 2005. As it relates to the media people who've said it, I would say that some of them have been lazy. I think that there were a lot of things that were written and said about, and I was a part of these teams, so I don't want to walk away from it, but teams when I was not the GM, those teams were very successful. They did things in their own way. I think some people didn't like the way they did them. And so I think one of the things that's happened is that complaints about the way that those people did things are being conflated with us now, even though the only commonality is it's the Houston Rockets. The players, coaches, front office has changed hugely. That's my perception. So that's my answer to that question. Like the real answer is I don't think there's validity to that. Our culture is we work really hard and we support one another. And I think this team has done that very well. So and that is largely a function of Stephen and what he's done on that, because that's a culture in particular is a very coach-driven thing, and I want to give Stephen his credit. I think he did a very good job on that front.
Because of the potential of what this team can be, how important is the alignment from top to bottom in this phase 2, and how would you compare it to the last 3 years?
Yeah, so I think we've been aligned the last 3 years, and I think but I think it's like that's a risk. Anytime you make a change, there's a risk that you stop being aligned. And I think I said this when I first got the job 3 years ago. Alignment from top to bottom is hugely important. The teams and organizations that have struggled are the ones where you got one guy pulling this way and one guy pulling that way, and everything just ends up being a mess. I'm certainly aligned with Tillman. And it's going to be imperative on us to make sure that alignment continues with our new coach, and all the way down to all of our players, and our staff and everything else. And so I actually think that fundamentally that's as important as anything else out there. And it's something I'll be very cognizant of as we go through this process.
We're gonna take 3 more. Mark?
Rafael, when you started this process to now, where do you, how would you quantify or label where y'all are at, or where you wanna get?
Yeah, so I think, I've said this before, I think we're at the end of kind of stage 1. We, looking back at my tenure, when I took over, it was very much in a time of flux, and I had no idea which way we were going, up, down. It was very much about kind of what's gonna end up making the most sense. A couple of years into that, we made some huge trades, and our direction became pretty certain, right? And at the end of that year, very certain. And so, and at that point, I think I kind of laid out for you guys kind of a roadmap. We're gonna rebuild. We're gonna be very young. We're gonna be exciting. We're gonna jump very high. We did those things. But that's not gonna be infinite. It's not gonna last forever. And I think we're reaching the end of that stage. Not to say we're gonna somehow become the oldest team in the NBA next year, but we're not. I mean, the team, like in terms of minutes played, I think we might have been end of the year as like the youngest team ever, and we're not gonna be that next year. And so I think we're kind of hitting in a natural way the next stage of kind of the rebuild, which is like adding in veterans, trying to be materially more competitive, and I think that's where we're going. It feels very much to me like we're on track, but you got to do it, right? You got to do it, and so this offseason is going to be very important to us. We're going to have some big decisions to make in free agency. Those are going to be important decisions. We're going to have some big important decisions around the draft and around all the trades that happen at draft time. Those are going to be important decisions for us. So yeah, that's where I feel like we're at.
To piggyback off Jackson's question at the top about playing style, some of the more veteran coaches may have a certain way that they want to do things. How much going into this search is you guys identifying a style that you want to play and then looking at the coaches through that prism versus, I suppose, listening to the coaches about what they think is best to optimize this group and then adopting your preferences to what their styles are?
Probably more the second than the first. Okay. But again, like it's like a lot of it is okay. Person X has a vision. How do we feel about being able to achieve it? Like, how is this player going to fit into it? How is that player going to fit into it? And that's a discussion. Like that's Coach X saying, this is how I see it. Oh yeah, that makes sense. And we may need to bring in person Y from the outside, or not a single person. That would be crazy, right? But like this type of player might be very impactful. Oh yeah, that's doable, right? And so we're looking, so somebody presents that type of vision to us, and we think it's really compelling, and we kind of buy it. And again, somebody, I think it was Kelly's question about like alignment. We're all behind it. Like, alignment doesn't just go top bottom. It goes the other way too, right? So the coach we need to buy into what the coach is saying. So that is super important. Like he's like, I really think if we do this, we can be really successful. That needs to be really convincing to me. That needs to be really convincing to Tillman. That needs to be really convincing to our players, right? Kind of both ways. And when everyone's bought in, we have alignment. Now we can go after it, right? And if you have that kind of vision, that global vision that everybody can buy into, when things are rough, which they will be, like the last 2 years have been rough, but like every year is rough. No matter what team exists. I was on a team that won 65 games, and I think we lost 5 in a row that year. Everybody hits rough spots, right? And so when it's rough, you need to be able, that vision, that alignment is what pulls you through. And so, anyway, that's what we're looking to find.
Of course, you spoke about how young your team is, and you have some young players like Jalen Green and Jabari Smith that can become stars but aren't there yet. Will they have any input into the next coach that you bring in when you have any conversation with them about that?
No, I don't think that's fair. I worry even when you're talking about like 30-year-old men that it's a little unfair to put them in a position where you're saying, hey, what do you think about this guy? So no, I think I know those guys really well. Organizationally, I'm not making this decision in a vacuum. We know these guys really well. Will we be factoring in how we think that they will help these guys grow into the players they can become? Of course we will. But I don't know that it's at all fair to put it on them and say, hey, what do you think? I just don't think that's fair, at least in this stage in their career. So no, I don't anticipate doing that.
Thank you, Rafael. We appreciate your time.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.